Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Wednesday, March the 15th, 2023. Beware the Ides of March. Yes, it's the anniversary of Julius Caesar's assassination. And this raises the question of whether or not there was anything he could do to prevent himself getting killed that day. Now, his wife did warn him, at least according to Shakespeare. She told him not to go out. The soothsayer said the same thing. There were bad omens left, right and centre. So he could have stayed at home. But he decided to go out. So did he have a choice? Well, I suppose when you're Julius Caesar, your death is important. It matters for the world, it matters for society. As Caesar's wife said, when beggars die, there are no comets seen. The heavens themselves blaze forth the death of princes. So if you're a big, famous person, very influential, you've been given a certain amount of time on this earth to have your influence, and there comes a point when you have to go. Like Hitler. I mean, there was a bomb plot in 1944, but that wasn't his time. He died on April the 30th, 1945, nearly a year after the bomb plot. So if you're Julius Caesar, you're here for a purpose. You have been chosen, and you are going to be you're going to be very successful while you're alive, but there comes a point where you're no longer useful. You're surplus to requirement, and you have to go. Yet, if you're an ordinary person, like me perhaps, then your life and death doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make the world a better or worse place. It doesn't lead to anything massive going on in society. So fate can deal with you being alive. It can deal with you being dead as well. So I think this is the disadvantage of being a powerful person. If you're powerful, you are fated. And perhaps to a great extent, the time of your death is written. Perhaps it's written the moment you're born. So yeah, there are certainly disadvantages in being famous. Now, as far as other things are concerned, I want to talk a little bit about Pluto, because Pluto is about to change sign. It's about to change sign from Capricorn into Aquarius. And I'm going to suggest that this does have a big potential impact on the banking sector. Indeed, Pluto seems to have influenced the banking sector since 2008, when we had the big economic crisis. So for the last 15 years or so, Pluto has on and off been having a big influence on business and finance. But before I talk about Pluto, I want to look at what's going on today in the stars. And today is March the 15th, 2023. So let's see what's going on. Okay. Right, so here is, let me just show you, yeah, there is the chart for today. You will see that the moon up here is moving into Capricorn. It spent a long time in Sagittarius, and now it's in Capricorn. So Capricorn is a very different sign from Sagittarius. Sagittarius is all about free movement. It's about saying what we like. It's a bit chaotic. Maybe even a bit disorganized, yet Capricorn is serious. And the moon doesn't actually like being in Capricorn. The moon is supposed to be a feminine planet. It's supposed to be quite emotional, but Capricorn is all about money. It's all about being well organized. And, people with moon in Capricorn can be somewhat self-interested. They put their own interests first, or perhaps the interests of their family as well. So we're going to start to see a little more selfishness here. And perhaps we ourselves should not be afraid of being selfish. Sometimes it really is okay to put our own interests first. And while all this is going on, Venus, the planet Venus in late Aries, is starting to make a square with Pluto. That might mean that relationships could be becoming a little intense. It might be that people are finding it difficult to let go of things. Any kind of relationship, we want things to be as they used to be, and we want to hang on to the past. And with Venus square Pluto, there is a certain obsession there. So if your current relationships have any obsessive quality to them, then perhaps you should focus on other things. Now, as far as Pluto is concerned, you will notice that it's now at 29 degrees and 51 minutes of Capricorn. It's about to leave the sign. Now, a long time ago, beginning of 2008, Pluto entered Capricorn. And I remember at the time thinking to myself, what's this going to mean? I thought it's going to have something to do with banks. Maybe there's money to be made in, for example, in investing in banks. But banks were going to be important. And so it turned out, because 2008, that whole period since at the beginning of Pluto going into Capricorn, was a financial crisis. Banks had overextended themselves. They'd supported subprime mortgages, and the whole financial system was on the verge of collapse. And governments had to do quantitative easing. They had to do all sorts of stuff like lower interest rates, do everything they could to save the economy. At least they thought, they thought they were doing the right thing. And I suppose it seemed to work. The system didn't crash. But now, just as Pluto is about to leave Capricorn, we're getting echoes of what it was like when Pluto just entered the sign. We're getting, we've already had the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, and there are a lot of small banks that are vulnerable. And so it seems that we thought we were okay as Pluto was about to leave Capricorn, and then just as it was walking through the door, it's turned round and the nightmare has started all over again. Then we've got to worry about Pluto in Aquarius. Well, I'm not going to talk about Pluto in Aquarius yet. It's not there, but it's not quite there yet. But it's certainly getting there. Another thing to point out about financial cycles is that you'll notice that Saturn is now moving towards, at least I notice, maybe you won't notice, that Jupiter is starting to make a 45-degree aspect to Saturn. And Jupiter and Saturn are the social planets, and together they're very connected with financial cycles. And so I think as Jupiter makes that 45-degree aspect, we're going to see more pressure come into the system. So this, this is what's going on. But one thing that's interesting is that everyone is now saying that the Fed's cycle of interest rate rises is coming to an end. That with the threat of banking collapses, the Fed can't keep moving interest rates up. Now, this may reflect Saturn moving out of Aquarius into Pisces. So let me explain. Saturn is very strong in Aquarius. Saturn rules the sign Aquarius. And so Saturn is about restriction. It's about limitation. It's about living within your means. And so having high interest rates, which discourage borrowing, means people have to be more careful with their money. Saturn, as it left Aquarius, was really making central bankers, particularly the Federal Reserve, tough and perhaps telling people to live within their means, at least right at the end. But now it moves. Now Saturn moves out of Aquarius. It's all of a sudden it gets weaker. So that restraint has now gone, and I think it's just really interesting that the moment Saturn moved out of Aquarius, something happened which forced, or will force, central banks to reconsider their whole view that you have to put up interest rates to deal with inflation. And when you look at Jupiter is a planet of expansion, Saturn is a planet of restriction, and now Jupiter is in a stronger position than Saturn. And so that suggests to me that central banks are basically going to start to think short term. They're going to want to, make people happy. You can't have people losing a job. You can't have people losing access to their savings. It may feel less painful to allow government spending and to allow inflation to get out of control. Anyway, that's my view. I'm not saying any of this is going to happen, but it's certainly something to think about. So that is pretty much all I've got to say for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for putting up with my kind of rambling monologue. Today has been a bit of a ramble, and I'm sorry about that. But maybe tomorrow things will be different.